In the eyes of some people, the pain that wrestlers go through is fake. However, when we look closer to the accidents that can happen in the ring, we quickly realize that their profession is one of the most dangerous ones on the planet. Every night, they are just one small mistake away from ending up in a wheelchair for the rest of their lives. It's a pleasure to meet you on the Wrestling Paradise to tell you about the most shocking injuries in the WWE. Are you ready to be horrified to learn how an injury of a young wrestler forced the WWE to give him $10 million? Do you want to know more about the stupid way Cody Rhodes tore his pectoral muscle? Do you want to find out how an injury quite strangely helped Randy Orton's career? And are you curious to learn about the superhuman act that Triple H has already done in the ring, despite a serious injury? You have come to the right place because in our video we will see a succession of violent moments together that had important consequences on some wrestlers' careers. You are on the Wrestling Paradise, WWE's most shocking injuries. Here we go. If there is one wrestler who has experienced injuries in his career, it's Triple H. The one who is a WWE legend has already been removed from the ring several times. This is precisely one of his specialties. Each time he has been able to return to his best level. We have a beautiful illustration of it in 2001. At that time, he was one of the big stars of the Federation, alongside The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin. Moreover, he was forming a team with the latter in the spring of 2001 when he got seriously injured. We're on Monday Night Raw when he has a tag team match with the Texas Rattlesnake against Chris Jericho and Chris Benoit. On that day, there was no reason to imagine what was going to happen. At a moment when his partner was in a bad position and he was getting back into the match, he tore his quad. It was as brutal as it was unexpected. It should be emphasized that Triple H proved his incredible strength and resistance during this match, since he continued the confrontation despite everything. He went to the end of everything that was planned, even walked despite this injury, and then suffered the walls of Jericho of his opponent. Then he will have no choice but to step away from the ring for many months. But like a phoenix, he managed to rise from the ashes. After his return, he will win the Royal Rumble in 2002 and resume his beautiful career. The wrestler Owen Hart has a rather memorable history with accidents. He has not only been responsible for a serious injury when he did a pile driver to Stone Cold Steve Austin in 1997, which almost paralyzed him for life, but he was also a tragic victim since he will horribly die after a free fall of more than 70 feet during a special entrance. However, he also experienced a less serious injury but quite awful to see. We are on Raw in March 1998. On that day, Owen was facing Barry Windham. In a sequence where he stood on the ropes to punch him several times, he will land very badly when returning on the ring. He completely twists his ankle. In soccer, this is the kind of injury that usually leads to an immediate substitution. But for Owen, there is no question of stopping anything. He will continue the match and even manage to climb on the top rope to do his aerial dropkick move. This performance was remarkable, and it shows us that in pro wrestling, no matter what, the show must go on. Randy Orton is not only one of the most famous names in pro wrestling, he is also one of the wrestlers whose longevity is the most impressive. Indeed, he has a more than 20-year career without ever having a part-time schedule or wanting to go to Hollywood. His physical condition is clearly one of his big qualities. However, in 2008, he wasn't far from saying goodbye to his career. We are at the One Night Stand show when he faces the WWE Champion, Triple H, in a last man standing match. Everything was put together to have a brutal confrontation between these two men. But after a few minutes, it was all ruined by an injury. In a sequence where the game dodged Orton and thrown him outside of the ring, Randy landed very badly. He broke his collarbone. This came at a very bad time for him since he had just lost his WWE Championship recently and he was keen to get back on top as soon as possible. In the end, despite his intense pain and an absence of several months, this injury may have been a blessing in disguise in reality. When he returns, he will be better than ever, sharp, determined, with extraordinary acting skills, and his 2009 year will be legendary. This story shows us that sometimes disappearing for a while can be a good thing, if you take the opportunity to improve and come back transformed. The NXT show is a place of experiments of the WWE, where it has the opportunity to test new wrestlers and see if they are ready for the main roster. We imagine that when a young athlete gets injured there, it is not a good sign for the rest of his career. Yet that's what happened to Ridge Holland. It's October 2020 when he has a match against Oney Lorcan, a badass who doesn't hold back in the ring. There was a moment during which Lorcan was going to jump on his colleague, and where the latter had to receive him. But when he catches him in his arms, it's a disaster. He can't receive him well because of his position. He bends his ankle completely, which causes him to fall immediately. The impact will be brutal. He fractured it and will need a long period to recover from it completely. Fortunately for him, this will not prevent Ridge Holland from returning and even managing to start in the main roster at the end of 2021. It's a great achievement by the Brit. We are at the Hell in a Cell show in 2022. In the main event, Seth Rollins is about to face the man who has just made a triumphant return to the WWE, Cody Rhodes. But when he takes off his coat after his entrance, it's shocking. We discover the serious injury he has just done to himself. You should know that the American Nightmare had torn his pectoral muscle. Unfortunately for him, it couldn't have come at a worse time. He was still new to the Federation in a certain way. They were testing him to see if he was capable of becoming one of the top guys in the next few years, especially since he was very keen to prove himself. But while training at the gym, we can say that he was a little too ambitious. During the bench press exercise, he tried to impress someone who seemed to look at him in a mean way, and he injured himself. However, he still wanted to keep his spot in this match, even if it meant lying about his pain. In addition, it was far from being an easy match since, in Hell in a Cell, everything is allowed. Despite this injury that will keep him away from the ring for several months, Cody was able to show his guts by wrestling with intense pain. We imagine that management must have liked it since he will win the Royal Rumble 2 years in a row and become champion at WrestleMania 40. In the 90s, Bret Hart was one of the biggest stars of the pro wrestling business. He was known for his technical qualities, the excellence of execution as he was called. However, he didn't have the career ending that he would have deserved because of a very serious injury, like many other wrestlers unfortunately. First, you should know that wrestling was his great passion, but that he had left WWE to join World Championship Wrestling to earn more money there. Given what happened afterwards, he could only regret this choice. Not only will he no longer be in the company when his brother Owen tragically dies there, but against Goldberg in 1999 he suffers a kick with disastrous consequences. The Starrcade show against the man who had had an unbeaten streak of 173 matches, he therefore gets kicked without any protection by his colleague. However, in wrestling, the whole idea is to secretly protect your opponent while giving the impression you want to hurt him. In any case, he will have a concussion and will never recover in the following years. He said that because of this injury, his brain was no longer able to appreciate life's simple pleasures. His fate shows that in sports entertainment, you can go from heaven to hell in a very short time. In the final Raw of the year 2015, the luchador Sin Cara was the victim of an impressive injury. On that day, he was facing Big E in the ring. The sequence during which he hurts himself shows us how crucial it is to master your falls in wrestling. While the Mexican barely landed himself on the ring apron, his opponent has no mercy. He violently removes his feet from the apron to make him fall on the ground. But this fall did not go as planned. Sin Cara does not land completely on his back, but mostly on his left shoulder, which is dislocated after this failed maneuver. Xavier Woods' trumpet will not be enough to make him get better, but like many of his colleagues, he went through with the match. We can say that by his perseverance and resilience, he was worthy of all the great lucha tradition. He will still have to leave for a few weeks. However, his injury shows us that you must not land just randomly in wrestling. It is a true art that all the greatest perform to perfection. As you can imagine, female wrestlers are just as exposed to the risk of injury as male wrestlers. Indeed, with the women's revolution in the WWE, they had more and more brutal and dangerous matches. That's what we could see in Naomi's case. It's February 2014 when she faces Aksana on Raw. The injury that she is going to suffer there is quite astonishing. While they were in the middle of a battle, Aksana puts her knee in Naomi's face, who is on the mat. It wasn't really done with precaution. The wrestler's eye will be directly hit. This interaction, which could have been avoided, will lead to a fracture of the orbital bone. This can remind us of the injury The Undertaker had in the 90s when the behemoth Mabel destroyed his face. It forced him to wear a mask for a while. Anyway, this incident makes us realize that all the body areas can be impacted in wrestling, and sometimes with heavy consequences. Fortunately, Naomi will recover from this and manage to become one of the most important names in the women's division during the next decade. The wrestler we are going to talk about is not very famous, but what he experienced in the ring really represents one of the worst pro wrestling destinies. The victim is called Chuck Austin. In December 1990, he will be involved in a WWE show in Tampa, Florida. For the ambitious young wrestler that he was, this represented a great opportunity. He then decided to offer his services to the biggest wrestling company in the world. After several months of training, he will be offered the opportunity to be a jobber that night. That is to say, he will be a wrestler who will essentially serve to highlight the company's most important superstars, suffering their moves for most of the match and losing. He will then be in a match alongside Lanny Poffo, Macho Man Randy Savage's brother, against Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty. This job will bring him $150, but above all it represented an interesting opportunity to get noticed. But nothing will happen as he had hoped. All the preparation for the match was done in only 10 minutes, just before the confrontation, which is already not great. Jannetty will explain to him the finisher he will have to undergo, which Chuck Austin didn't really feel comfortable with. What follows will prove his instincts right. During the move's execution, he falls violently on his head. He will no longer be able to move and will be taken to the hospital by the emergency services. After narrowly avoiding paralysis, he will no longer be able to walk normally to catch objects. This injury ruined his life, which will make him file a complaint against the Federation, even if he will receive $10 million in compensation. His dream of being a great wrestler, however, was shattered forever. There is a wrestler who has never been afraid of the slightest suffering, to the point of often doing suicidal moves. His name is Sabu. With his unique look and his more extreme maneuvers than the others, he has made an impact on many wrestling fans. As we can imagine, his style has caused him many injuries in his career, but surprisingly, it was rather a move that someone executed on him that cost him his worst injury. It's 1994 at ECW, the Temple of Extreme, which has been faithful to its hardcore reputation in this incident. In a match against Chris Benoit, who will become infamous 13 years later for other reasons, he will take a move of the Canadian that will make him land violently on the head. The moment is impressive. This poorly executed move broke Sabu's neck. The match will be stopped after 2 minutes. This example shows us once again that it is enough to lack coordination with your colleague or precision from a technical standpoint to come close to disaster. However, this incident will not make Sabu more cautious in the ring, since the following years, he continued to defy death in his matches. Maybe there is an explanation behind all these physical sufferings that wrestlers accept to go through for years. They are simply crazy. And that was it for these most shocking injuries in the WWE. When we see how dramatic the physical repercussions of certain moves can be, we are full of admiration for the wrestlers. Every night they literally risk their lives. Through different examples, we have seen that simple errors of judgment or inattention can destroy their lives forever, but also that the greatest superstars are those who use these injuries to come back stronger. Without a shadow of a doubt, they can be a big source of inspiration. It makes me offer you a debate for you. Who is the wrestler who inspires you the most by his career, his mentality, his story? We invite you to come and give your opinion. It will be interesting to talk about it together in the comments and to share our opinions. We can say that sports entertainment really is a crazy world. I hope you had a good time watching this video, and I invite you to stay on the paradise of wrestling to look at some other ones. See you right away.
And that's the bottom line, 'cause Stone Cold said so. What?